All right, so in this video, I'm gonna explain how I came to the correct colors in this landscape painting. Hello and welcome to Paint Coach. If you're new to the channel, my name is Chris Fornatero and I'm here to help simplify oil painting so that you can get better faster. All right, I'm gonna start off by letting you know what colors I put on my palette for this painting, and they are ultramarine blue, sap green, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, yellow ochre, cadmium lemon, and titanium white. And now, do you need all of these colors to get the colors that I got in this painting? No, you don't. You can get any of the colors in this painting using the primaries in white. I do that all the time. My go-to primary palette is ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, cadmium lemon, and titanium white. I just wanted to say that because I feel like some people think that they can't get certain colors unless they put certain colors on their palette. And I've always talked about how I recommend using the primaries in white because understanding how to use those and get any color out of those, it's gonna give you a strong understanding of color and how it works. Now, if you feel like you don't have a strong understanding of using the primaries in white, I can give you the color mixing video from my Foundations of Oil Painting course for free. I'll put a link in the description of this video to where you can get that. Now, also, it's not just the color I'm paying attention to here, it's also the value. And value is how dark or light a color is. Now, technically, if you perfectly match the color that you see, the value is automatically going to be correct. And there are some painters out there that don't really pay attention to value. They just think like, oh, I'm just going to accurately match the color and the correct value will come along with that. And that is true. I think kind of the same thing about warm and cool. Like, I never think about warm and cool colors necessarily. I'm more of just trying to match the color. And if I match the color, the temperature will automatically be there because I matched the color. But I think being aware of the value is just another clue to help you get to the right color. Like, if I'm trying to match a color and it's not looking right, in my brain, I'm running through the thought of, all right, does it need to be darker or lighter? Is that why it's not matching? So just having that step and asking myself that question when I'm mixing colors helps me get the right color. Now, in my videos, I talk a lot about working big to small, and that goes for color as well. It's very helpful to squint your eyes and simplify all these little colors that you're seeing in the painting into big shapes of flat colors. Now, I know this might sound weird, like simplifying colors, and it might seem difficult. That's because it is difficult. It takes a lot of practice to develop the skill to simplify things. But there's actually an exercise that you can do that can help you with this and better illustrate the importance of what I'm talking about. And that exercise is that you get a small canvas, like 9 by 12 inches, something like that, and you paint in your scene only using big shapes of flat color. Like, you don't go into details, you choose one color for each big shape, and it almost kind of looks like a comic book. But doing this is very helpful because it's going to get you to understand how all the elements in the scene are working. What's sitting in front of what needs to be lighter, what needs to be darker. It also is going to help you see good compositional patterns, what shapes need to be grouped together into bigger shapes. This exercise is so helpful because it makes you discover what really makes a landscape work. Like, if you can't get your landscape to look right with this exercise, it's not going to get any better when you add in more details, more values, and more colors. I actually did this exercise with this painting, and I put that on my Patreon page along with the full painting of this painting. So if you want to check out how it all works, both those tutorials are on my Patreon page, which is linked in the description below. And I actually found this exercise in one of my favorite painting books, which is Fill Your Oil Paintings with Light and Color by Kevin Mcpherson. I've talked about this guy's books a lot. His other book, Landscape Painting Inside and Out, I am always going back to those books. For me personally, just his style and how he works, I feel like I get a lot out of his books, and he puts things in a way that's very easy to understand. Most of the time, it's just simplifying. That seems to be the answer with everything is, simplify, simplify. So if you want to check out either of those books, I have links to those in the description as well. Now, for this painting, I thought it would be best to work inside out. There's a lot of different ways that you can start a painting. Some start it with the first element in the scene and then work their way forward. Some just do all the lights, some block in the whole thing. But working inside out is that you choose the focal point area, or an area where a lot of elements of the painting meet. Like in this painting, you have the light and the shadow side of the tree. You have the mountain behind it, you have the house, you have the grass in the foreground, the grass in the valley in the background. And since all these elements are so close together, it's going to be very easy to bounce from one to another, comparing each of them to get them all dialed in correctly. It's kind of the same principle that I've talked about before of working the entire painting at once, but we're just kind of cropping it down into this one little section and treating it like its own little painting. And I'm not going to develop this one little section all the way till completion. I'm just going to develop it enough to where I feel comfortable and feel like I have enough information to figure out the other pieces of the painting. So I'm going to start with the darkest darks, my dark accents. I'm going to get those in first with relatively thin paint. I like getting those in first because if you think about it, the darkest areas in something are going to be the areas that are the deepest into it. Like if you think about this tree, the darkest parts are the areas that are deepest into the tree. So if I lay those in first, it's just going to make sense to then build lighter colors on top of that to help sell the effect of it being deeper, where there's less light getting to it. Then I put in the blue of the mountain behind it, knowing that I'm not going to get it right away. You know, I'm going to try the best I can, but I'm using thin paint because I know I'm going to be painting over it and changing it later. Now I'm actually working on a pretty big canvas here. It's 18 by 24 inches. So that allows me to use thicker paint in a way because I have more surface area to spread it out thinner. Also, this is acrylic primed canvas, which is more absorbent than say like oil primed linen. So I know a good amount of paint's gonna get absorbed, which is gonna make it easier to build paint on top of it. You know, I've always recommended painting small, and there are a lot of advantages to painting small paintings. But if you've never tried painting a big one, or it's been a while since you've tried painting a big one, you know, try it every now and then. A lot of times just changing up the physical nature of your painting process can like shake some things loose and make you understand some things, or some things can click just because the physical circumstances are different. So then I go and I put a lighter value in the trees, which is actually going to help me better gauge the mountains behind it. And then I go in and I alter those mountains. At this point, I know the mountains still aren't correct, but I want another piece of the puzzle to help me figure it out. So I lay in the grass in the foreground. Again, keeping the paint pretty thin here because I know I'm going to be building more paint on top of this later on. Even though this color that I'm using for the grass in the foreground I know isn't 100% right, just having something there that's close as a placeholder is going to help me better judge the mountains, which it does, and I readjust the mountains again. After that, I want another piece of the puzzle, so I put in other areas of the mountain, and after doing that, nothing is really sticking out to me as needing altered that much, so I move on to another piece of the puzzle, the grass that is down in the valley. Putting this in makes me quickly realize that I need to add some darker values in the trees that are on the mountainside here. And I actually start bouncing back and forth from the grass in the valley below to the trees on this mountainside and just kind of use them to dial each other in. So to make sure that this grass in the valley below is working, I put in the grass more in the foreground and dial it in more to make sure that this grass below in the valley is reading as further away. I'm paying attention to the elements of atmospheric perspective, and that certain colors are going to drop out as you get further in the distance, first yellows, then reds, then you're left with blues. This can be kind of hard to tell in photographs. I've actually made a whole video on how photographs can trick you in landscapes. If you haven't watched that, I highly recommend it. I'll put a link to where you can watch that above right now. But again, putting in this grass in the foreground with thin paint, knowing it's not 100% correct, just having something there is going to help me dial in the grass that is further down in the valley. Now the inverse is also true. Having the color of the grass down the valley dialed in better is going to be useful as a comparison to help dial in the correct color of the grass in the foreground. The same thing applies when I'm putting in this mountain that's further in the distance. Since it's further in the distance than the mountain on the left side, I make sure to put more whites into the blues, push them further back, and also the whites of the snow I actually dirty up a little more, add a little more burnt sienna, maybe a touch of blue. You know, I don't want them to be as bright as the whites in the mountain that's closer to us. Now the whites that are in the mountain closest to us are very far from pure white. Don't think they are pure white. They might look like it, but there is a lot of burnt sienna, yellow ochre, and a little bit of blue in those. And then I put in my sky, and since my sky is touching the mountains, it's very easy to compare and see what colors are off. And so I make adjustments to better dial in the colors of the mountains using the sky. Now this is probably my favorite stage of the painting because there is a color in every single area of the painting. There's no canvas showing and the colors are dialed in pretty well, but now I can really go in and really start comparing and dialing everything in even better. Again, this only works when there's actually paint on the canvas. You can't make adjustments if there's nothing on there to adjust. So I move around the painting, constantly comparing colors, comparing values. In my mind, I'm thinking, all right, like what is this color compared to that color, but still also compared to this color? Is it lighter? Is it darker than this, but still darker than that? Just a lot of comparing and fine tuning the correct colors. Before you know it, you gotta finish painting. All right, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you wanna see what I'm painting on a daily basis, you can follow me on Instagram at Forza43. I'm Chris Fornatero here telling you to go get painting.